Be sure to subscribe and like our channel. So, fuck technical difficulties.
Yes.
Anyway, that's how we're going to start off. Fuck technical difficulties. But we have a former co-host of Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole on today with Stephanie and Reiser. And she really needs no introduction because now she's got like 50 demon books, maybe 70 demon books. I don't even know at this point. There's so many. I can't even count on my hands how many books on demonology she actually has. And for those watching on various channels, Zach's going to try to pass the link through with me real fast to get us caught up to speed, but still make it entertaining despite a 15-minute late start because our software glitched, and I don't know.
It glitched hard.
I was joking that our cloud software that the demons were angry with me for not finishing projects with Stephanie, and they're like letting me know by having obstacles that could be avoidable, but no.
Nope.
No.
Nothing.
Just get your stuff done, or else. Here, we'll cut you off. No speaking for you. So that running joke, but maybe not a joke. It could be true.
Could be. Who knows?
Stranger things have happened. Well, welcome back to the show, Stephanie. So we've had a whole few conversations on demonology the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone agrees. So we wanted to kind of start it off with maybe having a discussion, because, when you see something like the Goetia or various demonology, everyone has an opinion, from Hollywood down to a certain methodology of ceremonial magic to a certain sort of shared methodology of demonologers. And maybe you could kind of bring us into the fold of, well, first, the obviousness is how ridiculous Hollywood is. But then second, about how different maybe the perspective is that you would have than a classic ceremonial magician on summoning demons.
Oh, well, there's a lot of different schools of thought there. I mean, first we have to look at, what does each individual think a demon is? Is it an evil spirit from Christian mythology? Is it a helper spirit of some sort? Or is it a divine intelligence? And demonolators tend to look at it as their divine intelligences. So they're not these evil, malevolent little beasties of Christian mythology, because a lot of demons of Christian mythology were gods of previous religions. So, and the original meaning of the word demon was divine intelligence or replete with wisdom. It's like everyone had their personal demons pre-Christianity. So the ceremonial magic view oftentimes has a very, because it's very steeped in Christian mysticism, does have that, evil, malevolent spirit aspect. And it also depends on the ceremonial magician. I mean, if they believe in the spirit as an actual spirit, as its own entity, versus whether or not they view that as like an energy source or a force of nature in the universe, or if they view it as a part of themselves or as a part of their psyche, because there are ceremonial magicians who view that too, and therefore commanding the demon is basically kicking your own ass, so pushing into submission that part of yourself that's causing you grief or whatever, that may be holding you back from your success. So there's all of these, there's such a broad view of what a demon is, and whether or not the person's background is from a Christian background or a more pagan background, whether or not, ultimately, when you're working with demons, intent is everything. And I think that's true for all magic, right? It's all about your intent. So with demonolators, the difference is instead of kicking our own asses or trying to beat spirits into submission based on mythology that we don't believe, we tend to want to work with that spirit or that force. And I often say demonic force because I think it's somewhat hubris on my part to actually say that I know exactly what a demon is. I mean, I know there's some sort of, sentience and intelligence there, clearly, but it's not just, a lot of people view spirits as they're just like us, but they're in the ether somewhere. So it's kind of interesting. So it really depends. So there is a lot of disagreement because there are so many varied perspectives on this. And so the demonolator thinks that working with the demonic in tandem and being respectful, because that's what worship means. Worship means to respect and hold in high regard. A lot of people erroneously think worship means groveling. So we respect the demonic and we work with them in order
to save that question now.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, so we prefer to work with them. And even if it is a part of your psyche, you can still work with part of your psyche. Maybe you don't need to kick your own ass. Some people do. I mean, I get that. But so I don't know that there's like necessarily a wrong or a right perspective. It's just that as demonolators, we don't believe in having to, kick our own asses and be rude or commanding or so arrogant to believe that we can control a demonic force. So
I mean, I think it's never gone well for all the stories I hear of people, whether or not they believe it's internal or external. It doesn't really matter on the outcome. It doesn't seem to go well after a while. Now, in classic Goetia and classic demonology, you basically threaten them to either comply or else. And even if you think it's in your head, it still seems to blow up in people's faces continuously after about 6 months to a year. Where they might have gotten stuff for a while, it sort of works at first, and then boom, it all blows up. Where that hasn't been my experience with not treating them that way, or treating them more like in the worship way, which is a contentious term. That definition of worship, I don't know that everyone would agree with.
Right.
But to hold in high esteem as opposed to grovel, which is an important point. I think that we should talk about. There's a lot of people who openly worship demons in the not hold in high esteem either, or worship gods, but not in the hold in high esteem either. It's more like groveling. And maybe we could talk about that for a little, because I think that's important. Because I think when people think you're working with demons and you're worshiping these demons, they're like, what? What, you're going to do, stupid things? Like, but that's not what you're saying exactly. I think so. We need to maybe clarify that a little.
Right. Well, and there's been like, it doesn't help that there's been like a modern trend of people, doing a lot of, where they've basically just taken Christianity and replaced it with demons. So you have a lot of that too, where it's like, people just, want to ask the demonic for stuff, and they want to pelt them with offerings. And I mean, I get that. The whole offering thing, I mean, that goes back to, some of the earliest religions leaving offerings for deities. And I get that.
But it doesn't always work.
Right. And so that wasn't really a part of the demonolatry I grew up with. I mean, yeah, we put certain things on the altar as like an offering to the spirits, but it was all symbolic. Every single bit of it was symbolic. And so it had something to do with like putting your psyche in the right mindset for working with these spirits. There's always a psychological factor to it, or some sort of symbolism that helped you better identify with what you were doing exactly. So it wasn't so much like, oh, here, I'm going to give you like all this fruit or whatever in hopes that I'll get some prosperity. Oh, great one. So, so there is that there's that distinction, and it kind of drives me nuts a little bit for people who just like, they build an altar and then they just do nothing but leave offerings. And I get that they want to express maybe devotion or whatnot, but I've found with the demonic that some of the best devotion, some of the best offerings you can actually give them is your time and your attention and paying attention. Because one of the things that I tell people is demons, the divine intelligence, it's here to teach you lessons. Because people are like, well, what did they get out of it? Well, it's divine intelligence. Why does it have to get anything out of it? It exists, it permeates the universe, and the whole purpose of it is to elevate your level of consciousness, your emotional intelligence, your wisdom about your relationship to the universe on a grander scale, and that sort of thing. So when the demons will, like, someone gets a backlash, it's because they're trying to teach them a lesson, and either they're really thick and they just don't get it, or they actually do. They actually understand it and go, oh, okay, I get the lesson that they're trying to impart on me from this experience. So if something backfires, that's often what it is.
We're often coming to a position where there's a lot of assumptions, sort of meta assumptions going into that. Like, first, that the divine intelligence is like that. Second, they basically have your best interest at heart, or maybe not best interest at heart, but they just are what they are as divine intelligences. And third, that the backlashes are kind of feedback. I might agree with some of these. Divine intelligences, that depends on how you define divine intelligences, right? But it's also a matter of the fact that, the devotion without connection or gnosis, or you can put as much as you want on the altar. If the vibration's not right, it's not right. It's never seen. It doesn't matter what system you're in. It's sort of
right.
It's there. You added food. You've never rung the bell, so something can't even see this beautiful altar. And unless you are very attuned to the spirit building the altar itself, this is not true if you're super attuned already to the spirit. Because at that point, building the altar itself with intention can ring the bell by itself. But if you're not vibrating and getting the vibration, and that's not the exact words, but you're not hitting the vibration, there's nothing to see it. They can't see it.
Right.
Or they can't experience it. It's just there. And I think your altar comment kind of goes to this. There's a lot of sort of, it's been a continual theme the last few, and the restart of our show, like a lot of the kind of TikTok witchery is a lot of show, and they don't get a lot of results. And you're like, well, and it basically comes down to what you said, the Christian mentality of, well, God decides. Well, maybe, but demons usually will at least give you a response if they're not going to do something. Yeah. And plus, they usually will tell you, I'm not going to do that for you, or something. They're not going to, if you call them up and they actually get something to show up, they're not going to beat around the bush, generally speaking, and say, oh, yeah, well, I'll take your offerings and run. It'll be like, no.
Fast food right there. Grab and go.
Yes, it is kind of like fast food.
Right. Well, and I also think, yeah, I think it is also a matter of, like, there are some spirits, like, everyone says as above, so below. That doesn't mean that they're just like us, but, on some other plane of existence. That more means, like, each of us as individuals, as individual magicians, we each have our own correspondences too. And that spirit has its own correspondences. Sometimes when you mix those two together, even alchemically speaking, those things do not mesh. Like, there are spirits that are just like, yeah, no, And there are spirits that, that magicians themselves will be like, yeah, no, which is why you get like, a bunch of people who will say, oh, Belial is great to work with, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll have people come up with, oh no, Belial's terrible. Belial was like really, vicious toward me or whatever. And not good for beginners. And that's
I've
why.
sort of started to call that an allergic reaction more than Belial. Like, you have an allergy to that particular spirit. No, I mean, I know it sounds funny,
but it's true.
It's like a spiritual allergy, like allergic reaction, that you call something up and there's all these odd things, and then you interpret it as a negative response from the spirit, which is not human, doesn't have human emotions. It might cause human emotions, but that doesn't mean it has human emotions.
Right.
It doesn't have a consciousness anywhere like any consciousness we have. Now, that's not to say it doesn't have a consciousness or it is not possible it has independent thought, but that thought is basically alien to any kind of human fourth dimensional thought that we can kind of conceive of in linear time. It's just not going to happen. Right. And that thing is going to get so angry because you summon it and tear you apart as if it's a Greek story. No, you're having an allergic reaction. For some reason, your system is reacting poorly to the energy. And that's the way I've started to think about it. It's like an allergic reaction and not the spirit doesn't want to work with you. Like, it's, you're having a negative allergic reaction to whatever spirit you're summoning, either from a Judeo-Christian upbringing or, maybe just because that is actually you're touching on a shadow issue by even summoning spirit. Oftentimes, like, let's face the facts, you wouldn't be summoning a demon, generally speaking, unless you had an issue that you wanted to resolve or try to fix. So it's probably already an issue.
Right.
Well,
and this.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Oh no! I was gonna say. I mean, and to that point, we do tend to anthropomorphize spirits. So we try to make them human-like because that's the way our brains work. Like, this is like that. This is like that. And that's just how we perceive the world as, physical beings. So it's really easy to do that. I mean, we even associate genders with specific spirits, even though they're completely genderless. And, we view things as positive and negative, even though they're very neutral. And and we view them as having motivations when we're projecting that onto them. It's not that they actually have a specific motivation.
Maybe they have motivations, but they're certainly not going to be the kinds of motivations that would drive us.
Right.
We got to pay rent.
Right.
Like, we got to pay rent. We got to make the car payment. We feel lonely, or, we want to get more friends, or we have these things we want. But from a spirit's point of view, I don't know. For me, a lot of the demons, especially actually this gets into another topic, we talk about ascension and spiritual growth. What does that mean to push somebody? It could literally mean making your life hell, right? Yeah. Like, from their point of view, right? Why would they do that? Because it's the only way to move you to a higher level of spiritual power is to become nemesis to you, essentially, in a way, like to bring about obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. From their perspective, maybe from their motivation, that's perfect, because when you're done, you're in this place where you're in a much more, I don't want to say purified, because that, again, is the wrong word, because it makes it seem like I'm talking.
Well, there's connotations to it, right? But you're different. You're a different state of being.
You're refined.
Right.
You have become refined through the crucible of what they put you through. And people would say, well, why would you possibly summon something for that? But you wouldn't. That's not what you're asking for. Right? You would summon the spirit to say, I want a job, or I want this, or I want this. And the outcome is all these trials where it's almost like the process of getting the job is so trivial, or
it's part of the process.
Right. So it's just like, there it is. It just falls into place because all the other things that were preventing it.
Well, it's kind of like, it's kind of like, okay, so let's say Yeah, let's say you want like all the fame and all the fortune. They're going to start throwing issues at you to basically show you all of your weaknesses, all the things you need to work on, why you don't have what you think you want, maybe even show you why maybe you don't want it. And that's just to basically wizen you up and get you to a point where if you really want something bad enough, you will work on those particular issues. And I say that because of my experience with Sorath, and we've talked about that before. I had to go there. You know it.
He's like, oh.
I'm convinced that Sorath, I won't name names, but I'm convinced that another author's, some of their problems came about by summoning Sorath. Is literally the daemon of the sun without constraint. And, you know, you can glow, you can be so bright that even yourself believes your own lies.
Yep.
Like, how awesome you are. And then it all goes down to hell.
Drinking
Fast.
your own Kool-Aid. That's what it comes down to.
Sorath's sort of a rough one. Like, you know, along with Belphegor, you know, and Stephanie talked about writing a Belphegor book, but the Sorath book might be in the future.
I think we should.
Let's get back. Once I get back on my feet, like with writing, we'll get the Sorath book going, because I think that's another one that has a lot of difficult connotations where people just summon that spirit, breaks them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Its motivation is simply put that if you're going to call me, I'm not going to say this is its motivations, but its motivations is if you can't stand the fires of what I bring, you shouldn't have called me.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can, you're worth talking to. And that seems like, what? That's that's motivation? Yes, it really wants to communicate with people.
It's a sun demon. What do you expect? If you can't be in the sun, stay out of the heat.
Right. If your wings are gonna melt, you should not have come so close to the flame. Doesn't like that seems like a totally inhuman motivation to say it still sort of seems very communicative. It totally does. It totally seems to want to connect to magicians. It just doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. It just
because it's doing what it does. It's not.
It's not hiding it. It's the sun. It just. I mean, that sort of seems weird that its motivation might be to actually connect and communicate, and that's its motive. But that's a very inhuman motivation. Like, it's just not. These things do not have human desires, not in the classic sense.
Yep.
Now, one of the topics that we never talk about, but I think it's okay for us to talk about a little, is there is such a thing as sort of book demons and then other demons. And the problem with other demons is that everyone in the general mass of society thinks that demons are common. I'm going to posit the opinion for everyone to discuss and debate that actual demons are rare. Demons in the world are walking around are very rare.
Well, I remember having that conversation with someone, and it was literally, they're like, yeah, a demon attacked me. I'm like, what? What's your feedback that a demon attacked you? Like, give me the proof. It could be a lot of other things. They're like, oh, no, it was a demon. I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to have this conversation because you think it's a demon, right? It could be many other spirits, but you're thinking anything negative is a demon, right? And that I won't say it's common in healing circles, but I have seen that enough in healing circles where people just identify something that could be could be the dead, for example. Like, it's a demon. I'm like, what? No, this is clearly a dead thing. Right? So I've learned off of Andrieh. So in my experience on things, I don't think they're common at all whatsoever, unless you're fucking around, particularly for them to pay attention to you. That's
a different thing if they start paying attention to you.
Right.
What do you think, Stephanie? What do you think?
I mean, I think honestly, I mean, if you're using demon in the sense of malevolent spirit, I have some mixed views of this, because I think a lot of people who think they're being attacked by demons actually have like histrionic disorders where they just want attention. Because I used to do a lot of paranormal investigation when I was younger, in my 20s and 30s. And oftentimes when we like got to like possession or a lot of paranormal cases, it often turned out to be either A, someone who just wanted attention, or B, somebody building their own thought forms from usually hormonal states, really heightened hormonal states, generally teenagers. That's why they say a lot of teenagers, there's a lot of paranormal activity in cases involving teenagers. And it's like, is it really a spirit, or are they creating that themselves? And are they, I mean, the human mind is in a lot of ways not fully understood even by science. And so, I mean, is it possible that there's some sort of telekinesis associated with the spirit, or have they pissed something off legitimately and something legitimately has come after them? So it really, really depends. I mean, because there's different levels. There's an actual something that's coming after you, okay, because you've done something you shouldn't have done, or because maybe that's the only way you'll understand is if it literally knocks you on your butt. A really good example of this is, I knew a guy who was a ceremonial magician, and he had issues with alcohol, and he stomped into his temple one night and started shouting at a demon. And the next thing he knows, he feels a hand in his chest, and he went straight on his back. So it literally knocked him on his ass.
Well, I mean, that's a particular thing where you did summoning, it knocked you on your ass. Okay.
Right. So so there's a physical thing. Like the demon's like, hey, dumbass, don't get too big for your britches, and maybe stop drinking.
I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, like, when you talk about like histrionic disorders and identity disorders with that, most demonic possessions, believe it or not, the people who get possessed are always Christian, and they're fundamental Christians. Mm-hmm. People don't understand the social context that it's not looked down upon.
Right.
Like, it's sort of like validation of your faith for the whole community.
It's a rite of passage.
It's not quite a blessing per se. It's not like in voodoo where it's a blessing where you get possessed by spirits, but it sort of reaffirms faith for the whole community when they have a demonic possession. So there's a social aspect of that. That's not to say there isn't an actual demon that might do that, but I doubt it, actually. Like,
well,
I sometimes have doubt.
Well, like demons, I mean, seriously, if they're going to possess you, I would hope that they would have something better to do with your body than just shout fuck a lot and convulse and, spit pea green soup, whatever, levitate. Yeah, big whoopty crap, I mean, literally, you would hope they would have something they would need to perform in the physical world if they were going to possess you. Now, channeling is different than possession. A lot of people use those words interchangeably. They're have totally different meanings. Possession is against your will. Channeling is you are actually in control.
Come on in! Right.
Yeah, exactly. You're inviting them in.
I mean, the situation with demons is such that, again, probably we're getting into another weird occult scare for a lot of those of us who are old enough to have lived through the 80s. We know what that was like. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's going in that direction again, at least in the United States. At least I'm not the only one thinking that way, and since you just kind of shook your head, yeah. And it's like these demons have this sort of overwhelming idea that this is common. First of all, most malevolent spirits are probably not classically demons. I think Zach's right. They are dead shards because we treat our dead horribly in our society that just have remorse, that cannot get through that. Or they're nature spirits that people have pissed off, like the actual counters, besides the psychological ones, which is the vast majority of all cases. Although, the problem with this is once a person slaps a demon label on it, then you have to do some sort of exorcism to even resolve the issue when, like in most cases, you could, even with a negative attachment or a malevolent spirit, you could just do qigong to get it out, or like some
Pretty
little
much.
hypnosis to slip it out of a person in like a half hour. But once you label it as a demon, there's a certain mythology and power that you've gifted to that no demonologist would ever do. They just would think, what are you talking about? Like, it is sort of like worship in a sort of way that it's so powerful I can't do anything against it, which is almost literal worship at that point. It's not.
Yeah. Well, that's placation, right? So, of the point of powerlessness.
Right. Because the minute you think that you're powerless against it, you are. You are what you think. And it's kind of like, the people who have sometimes they have bad experiences with demons. They go into the experience thinking they're going to have a bad experience. So it's almost like it's a self-fulfilled prophecy. They bring it on themselves. Yeah.
More often than not, I think that is a great point. More often than not, the very people who have the issue with, well, we mentioned Belial, right? The very people who have issue with Belial are desperate for cash or something like that. And they went in scared, and then what they got was fear.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you could literally say, you went in fearful, or the very people who are so desperate to try a demonic summoning or pay $5,000 for a demonic pack, which if you want me to make a demonic pack with you for $5,000, Queen City Curio will hook you up. We'll literally tell you not to do that. But the little people who pay $5,000 to make a pack and have negative effects, like there's this principle of, I don't know exactly what the cognitive term was because I forgot, but the more you invest, the more you have to have something happen, right? So like, talk about the thought forms like we were talking before. If you pay $5,000 for a pact, probably something will happen because you're so cognitively invested. You'll create the thought form even if there isn't anything real going on.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, on the flip side, I mean, we have worked with Belial in the sponsored workshops, and people were like, one person, the memorable line is, "How was that? Balls. Felt it in my balls." And we're like, what?
Oh, wow.
But it was generally considered a positive experience.
It was a positive experience on that, right? So,
right.
Because it was so energetically in your face, like. But that's what I would expect from an entity, Prince of Earth. It's just rock solid, right? It's right there.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but if somebody went into that with fear, they get fear back.
Right.
Is that the entity? No.
Right. Well, you have to consider what the magician brings to the magic too. It's not just what the spirit's bringing to the working; it's what you bring to it too. And I tell people, a lot of it's like cooking. Magic is a lot like cooking. You're adding your energy and your intent and your preconceived notions and all of that, and your own fears and insecurities and all of those things into your magic, and you're mixing it with that spirit energy, and sometimes you don't know what you're going to get from that.
Right. You don't.
No.
So
now, if you're more experienced, like there are methods through greater and greater trance to kind of cut down on those things you bring in, or kind of get in the right state of mind and control it while going in, and just not react.
Or exactly that you're going in for one of those reasons, and so
exactly.
You're basically, I don't know, mitigating your expectations somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I think, that's exactly right. You're mitigating the expectations. I mean, sort of a lot of people kind of go back to TikTok. That's what they're learning, right? Like this is negative happenings, but it's like what is actually going on is a little more complicated. It's not just you just like the wick, right?
Well, I mean,
probably dates everyone here. Everyone laughed. Probably date us a little. The original Craft movie, right?
Right.
They do got a new one coming out. I heard a remix one.
Oh, no kidding. Why do they have to remake
it
everything?
already came out.
It already came out? Oh.
Huh.
Right. And one of the like lead characters is the daughter of the Downs girl. So it was the daughter of the girl who was bound at the end of the first movie. It's her daughter that is not the same sort of problems, but starts creating problems. So yeah.
Okay. Huh.
But they just get power and decide to put it all away, and that it was too dangerous and not to have magic anymore. We should actually talk about that, because that gets to an interesting point. No other field that I know of in occult stuff outside of people working with demons causes so many people to decide to just give up working with magic and become a Christian.
Right.
Now, granted, we can say that they were already Christian, but...
Well, and that's part of it too. But I think a lot of people, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but we have to be realistic here. Not everyone has the same emotional intelligence or the same ability to look within themselves. There are some people who are very insightful and very introspective, and there are some people who are not. And I think people who are not introspective tend to generally do worse with magic overall. You have to be introspective. You have to see, you have to understand why what's happening is happening. You have to be able to look within yourself and to also see the bigger picture and all of these things, and not be the victim, and not and I don't know, just kind of like see the parallels, see the connections. And not everybody has the ability to do that, I think. So, I mean, really, there are some people who are called to magic, and there are some people who are just doing whatever's trendy and basically doing whatever. It's more of a social identity or an aesthetic as opposed to something they're actually serious about. They're not seriously looking at their own evolution or bettering themselves or becoming the best they can be, or, being able to reach their full potential, so to speak. So, or to find their great work and understand what that exactly means, A lot of people.
I still find it a little odd that it's this particular style of magic that tends to get people to break the most. Now, I think I have a theory on that goes back to some of our conversation. Like, even half-assing it, not knowing what you're doing, maybe getting into a slight trance state or even something, I think ringing the bell, they're willing to listen. And that's terrifying. Right. That something showed up.
Right. Because they weren't expecting it.
Yeah, maybe even in some cases it's easier in our current reality tunnels to actually get a demon to show up than a classical angel. I don't know. But for some reason, I think people go into this thinking it's a cure-all and something shows up and it terrifies them. Like, right. Maybe it's just because summoning demons is the big taboo, like,
well, it could be a cultural thing. It could be a cultural thing. I mean, culturally, if you think about it, Western culture overall tends to view the demonic in a very Judeo-Christian way. And it does scare them. And a lot of them go to demons because they're trying to rebel against their Catholic upbringing or their Protestant upbringing or Pentecostal or whatever the heck they are. They're trying to rebel against that and go, oh, well, I'm going over to the other side. And so I do think people have more bad experiences because of that. And I do think that's largely a cultural construct, because I think if everyone was raised in a society or culture where we viewed the demonic as divine intelligence, and you didn't have this good evil dichotomy that's kind of like, constantly at war with each other, and everything wasn't so black and white like it is in Christianity, you would not have as many people having such horrible experiences that they run back sprinting off to another spiritual paradigm, as they do with like running back to Christianity. So I do think we can largely blame our culture for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, just the conversation sparking. It's like, I'm even just thinking about, like, animes, which is a good personification of Japanese culture. You see a lot of goetic stuff. Like, I don't know how many Italian shows I've seen.
A lot.
Right? There's a lot.
But they're not treated the way the Western demons are treated.
Correct.
Right.
They're treated like gods.
Correct.
Like what we classically consider to be gods or nature spirits or probably the context that we're actually discussing.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, although there is Christianity in Japan, probably Buddhism Buddhism and Shintoism is the dominant paradigmal ideas in the culture.
Right.
Again, and those spirits from the Goetia and other demon books do not, even if they're a little bit adversarial, they still act. They do not act like the personification of evil.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Here's the thing, is whether or not they're adversarial is based on our limited viewpoint. I always like to use the example of, if a mountain lion goes and finds a toddler and eats it, is the mountain lion evil? Or is it just doing what mountain lions do? You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of, demons just are. They just do what they do. And the perception of whether it's good or evil is on us, You
heard similar phrases to good and evil, to clean and unclean. That's another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very Christian metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Or the fallen, which I got into a big argument about.
Yeah.
Maybe the fall is inherently Christian. I told it was not. But I'll just leave that one alone, right? But again, these are metaphors that come from kind of a different place than I think most demologists are coming from. Again, like we talk about divine intelligences, or at least something that is out there that does not necessarily share all of our human needs or wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which kind of gets to some practical things about working with demons, like, because if you're going to summon them, you have to realize, it's not a human intelligence.
Right.
So, if someone was going to go out and summon a demon today, what would you have them do?
First thing I would have them do is to, I always say, spend some time with the sigil, spend some time kind of getting a feel for that demonic force before you actually work with them, before you actually summon them, evoke them, invoke them, whatever you're going to do. Spend some time with their correspondences. Spend some time, I would say reading about them, but, historical history is written by the victors, right? So most of the stuff you're going to get about most demons is negative because it's all been written from a very Judeo-Christian viewpoint. So, I always say the best way to find out how to work with them is by actually working, or find out what they can help you with, or what their nature is to work with them. Because for some people, one particular demon may be really good at helping them with one thing, but for another person, it's something entirely different. Because again, you have that alchemical mix. You've got your magician, you've got your spirit, and whatever happens when that energy is mixed together is very unique to each individual magician. So I don't know. I think what it comes down to is there's just so many factors that weigh into how demons are perceived, what happens when you work with them, And so I think really what they need to do is they need to, first of all, figure out why exactly they want to work with the demon. That's number one. Number two, become familiar with the sigil, become familiar with any history, if so, and then start slowly by maybe, I always tell people to vibrate the demonic invocation, whether it's self-made or it's one of the ones in a Daemonolatry book or whatever, and use that until the vibration of the room changes, and then just sit with that energy. Sit with it. Feel it out. What does it feel like? Do some meditation with that. Do some meditation with the demon. And kind of fill it out before you jump into, saying, okay, I want to work with you for this thing. Because that's just kind of like walking into somebody's house and going, hey, I know that you do this.
All your money.
Yeah, I know that you do this. Can you get me $1 million? And they're like, who the hell are you? There's got to be some sort of, you got to have some sort of.
We've had that conversation before.
The slot machine.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that goes back to the offerings. I mean, that's the good guy with the offerings, or the good woman with the offerings.
The nice person with the offerings.
Nice person with offerings. Put offerings on, slot machine comes out, get what you want, and good luck with that one.
Right.
One thing I kind of wanted to, when we're talking about working with it, I mean, one of the things we didn't touch on was the aspect of, what if something is bothering you because you pissed them off? I think there's another third option too, is that something might actually bother you because you could be interesting. As in they were already there and you probably forgot, and they're trying to move you forward. Like, or you forgot a working that you did when you were a teenager, and then when you're adult, you can laugh about this.
How you laugh about? Because I'm thinking about myself, as you know.
You kind of half-ass a ritual when you're a teenager, and you're like, yeah, I'm in high school, I summoned a demon, but you thought nothing happened. And you're like, well, nothing happened. And then 10 years later, the demon's there, like, okay, you're ready now. Like, let's throw some obstacles or start bothering you because you're ready.
Right.
You're ready to listen now. Like, you've gotten the point. And people think that doesn't happen, but I think that happens more than anyone would like to admit. It's because they don't exist in time. All they see is basically like, you're not ready at this juncture, and then they see that, oh, now you're a light. You're ready. You're ready to actually to work with me. And it seems like it comes out of left field, but it usually doesn't. Like, that comes down to pissing things off. Might not be they're pissed at you at all. They might just be like, okay, you're stuck. I remember you, and you summoned me 10 years ago, and it's time that I get you out of the ditch, or I get you out of this, and that's not going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
You might not ever be friends with a spirit like that, but it could save your life.
Yeah. Right. Well, and that's true. I've had experiences like that too. So I think anyone who's practiced magic for any length of time has had an experience like that. So, I mean, at least if they've been doing it right, I guess. So, just my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't think, you could go and just work with any demon without having a relationship with it. And I'm sure something could still come of that. I just tell people, if you want a really good working relationship with a spirit, you do need to, spend some time with them and kind of fill them out and see if your energy meshes with theirs, see what kind of feelings that brings up, what wisdom or thoughts you have while you're working with that, and just kind of get to know them a little. But people don't always do that. I mean, that's the whole the cold, hard truth of the matter is a lot of people don't. They just open up a spell book when they're 16, 17 years old, and they do like all these rituals, and then they're like, I wonder, what's going to happen. And then nothing does happen. And then you're right, 10, 15 years down the road, they're like, it just hits them. And they're like, oh, crap.
the flip side of that is probably some of the spell books that are out now that basically are very much like go to the page, do the summoning, get what you want.
Mhm.
And maybe they do work for a lot of people, but I think they work with consequences later.
Right.
But it's on this line of consequences, not necessarily bad.
Mhm.
It's sort of like, I don't want to say the spirit knows you and it's like, where's the exchange? It's not quite like that. Because that's too human, but it's sort of like the next time you run across the spirit, it remembers that.
Right.
It's not remembrance. I don't even know how to say it. Like the smell is the same.
It's got your ping, something like that.
Yeah, it sort of understands you, or like I don't know how to say it because I have all human metaphors, but it's
a recollection of some sort. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's almost like there's some sort of like a record of all of that in there somehow. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of human behavior is very predictable anyway, if you are a behaviorist and you can see the type of behavior. So maybe they just kind of recognize that particular behavior too. I mean, that's a possibility. I don't know.
Yeah, we're at the edge of what we can, until we are not alive. Until we are not alive in 100 years, maybe we're the demons people summon. We wouldn't actually know what the experience of that is.
And if you do give offerings, you better know what we like.
Right.
Zach, if you had offerings, you wouldn't do anything for anyone.
Damn straight I wouldn't. I mean, I'd be like, are you resonating the room? No? Too bad. I ain't showing up.
Try harder. Try
harder.
I like when the room feels like correct, I will come. Otherwise, try harder. That would be harder. Zach. Get some basic energy skills, then we can talk. Get out of here. That would be Zach. Zach is a demonic force. You got to learn the basics before you summon someone like me. Get out. Zach.
You don't know Qigong? Get out of here.
Well, that helps too. I mean, we could go back into talking about foundation and how few magicians these days have that foundational knowledge. They don't know energy work. They've never done it. They don't understand correspondences and how all of those correspondences run through most Western magical systems. I mean, there may be variations here and there, but you learn those variations as you go. There's a lot of commonality though. And once you understand how all those correspondences work, and once you understand the basics of energy work, it makes working magic a lot easier, and it makes more sense in your mind.
I don't even understand what the core. They don't. The understanding of the. I mean, they don't even understand what the no, it's really mind blank on the word. You just said it. The
correspondences, resonance.
I kept switching to coefficients, which is just bad in my head. It's just all I could hear was coefficients. But it's not totally incorrect either. I was doing machine learning all Friday and all this week.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
But a coefficient adds to a certain outcome of prediction, or in the case of a correlation, it basically the different physical correlatives add to a vibration. People don't even understand that the whole points of correspondences is to increase the vibration. They're not rock solid. They're not the end all be all.
Right.
Like, as in, you could summon a demon right here on the show with nothing except nothing. Not even the seal, if you can remember it. Actually, you don't even possibly need the seal if you have a good relationship with the demon. You could literally just think hard enough. And it will be present that other psychics can be there, because that's the vibration. You're hitting the vibration of the core. You're hitting the vibration of the correspondences through the memory of the correspondences, or through the you have a memory of the vibration that you intensified through those different things. And again, that's enough, because you already have the vibration. The whole point of those, I mean, this is
to learn the vibration.
It's to get the vibrations in your head, because it's like only very few people can just do a summoning with no knowledge of the vibration. But even then, I will tell you, the people who can do that are, first, probably pretty experienced. And if they're not, they have a natural gift. Second, they have internal methods of sort of vibration checking, or they have ways internally that they've picked up, either through probably not through books, but maybe if you get my shapeshifting class, maybe they have, but of how to actually get the vibration right without the correspondences, or they know how to constantly tune into the vibration. But all of those correspondences, people don't even understand. That's about vibration, and they don't understand about energy work, or about, in some cases, they don't understand about, why you have to work on the boring stuff, like focus, and why it matters.
Mm-hmm. Meditation. Oh, I get so many people complaining about meditation. They're like, I can't sit still for more than 5 minutes. I've got ADHD or whatever. And it's like, you can still train yourself. I don't care if you've got ADHD or not. You can still train yourself to
I will say a
focus.
controversial thing. Okay, lots of people have ADHD, right? And that is a disadvantage. And so what? That just means maybe you start off with 20 seconds of meditation and kind of work through, work up from there. It might take a little while, but probably in most cases I've seen people actually do that, can sort of not get a handle on the ADHD. It's not like that goes away, but they can directly focus and overcome it because they've kind of trained themselves around their own physiology and their own issues. I mean, that's it. Just takes a little longer. But that kind of goes back to the lifestyle accessory kind of idea that you were bringing up earlier about that. I call it a lifestyle accessory. That magic and the occult's a lifestyle accessory, not a spiritual path. It's a lifestyle aesthetic, not a.
Well, it's not a cultivation piece, right?
Right.
Sometimes I wish I could get a group of seasoned magicians together for maybe one day a week to just get together and randomly pick a video anywhere that had the aesthetic show but no feeling behind it, and then make sure the person had a real spiritual impact. But I work with trickster gods all the time, and that's the kind of stuff they would do. Or trickster goddesses, trickster gods, like crossroad entities, demons who are adversarial. This is all how they would roll, and they would probably agree with me that this is a great idea. We could just have a Loki summoning session and keep doing it over.
Damn straight.
But the reason there is because it's like, yes, there's a lot more. I mean, there are always a lot of lifestyle accessories with this, but even now it's becoming more common, right? And that's why these basics are boring. They're not magical in themselves. Learning basic meditation can have a good impact on your brain and your ability to work and your ability to focus and even your ability to stay calm when all the shit's going to hell. Because I mean, kind of every day there's more news that indicates everything's going to hell, but not hell in the good way, like demons, like we're talking about, but hell
in the bad way,
right?
Like
hell in a Christian way. Yeah,
it's like hell in a Christian way, but
or the Buddhist way.
Yeah, but I mean, this is kind of one of the things that we're kind of talking about, is that all of that basic stuff you're talking about, even the stuff that you described, just sitting with the seal, is amazingly good advice. You know what it isn't? It's not exciting.
No, it's not. A lot of people do not like that. Because, I mean, once you learn the rules, once you learn the basics, you can break those rules in meaningful ways. Just like anything, if you know what you're doing and you know that foundation, really well, and you've developed those skills that you need, the meditation, the focus, the energy work, you can manipulate those things in very meaningful ways. And you don't have to follow the book anymore. If you know what you're doing and you know how you particularly work, how things with your body work, and all of that. And people just, it is the boring stuff. I mean, I remember thinking it was boring back when I was a teenager, but I did it because in some way, for me anyway, maybe I'm just a nerd, it was kind of exciting. Kind of like, ooh, what is going to happen in meditation today? Or, oh, if we do, because we did energy work that was kind of exciting. Like my teachers would do things like everyone would have to bring a random item from home, and we would know the story of the item, but nobody else would. And she'd take them and put them, randomly in a bag and have everybody pick one, and then they had to sit there with it and then write down their impressions of what energy was in that. Yeah,
I'm stealing this now.
You totally should.
It is.
And
it's really
and we had to, we had to write down your impressions and everything, and then you would go up and then you would read your impression, and then the person who brought the item would tell everybody about the item, and they see if they kind of matched. And so they would do exciting stuff like that for us to learn energy work, to learn how to feel things out. And we did exercises where we felt each other's energy field, and to see if you could feel it, and just all of those sorts of things. So it was kind of exciting, and it wasn't as boring. The problem is nowadays, I mean, so many people are solitary. You don't have the options of a lot of groups don't do that anymore. I mean, I don't know if a lot of groups did that back in the 80s or 90s either, but mine did. So
for the record, we do this kind of stuff at Queen City Curio in Toronto all the time.
Yeah, there you go. Find a place
we can facilitate study groups in Toronto if you want to kind of have that kind of experiential stuff, but we require masks, so don't hate us.
So I mean, there's a lot of ways to make energy work exciting, but if you're doing it by yourself, it can be super boring. But maybe, I don't know, find a magical partner to work with, someone who has the same interest as you, and try some of these different exercises.
I would say that some of these exercises, even the ones from my first book and some of yours, can be done over Zoom with actual effects. People will get actual effects. I mean, there's a reason for that. A picture or even a moving picture is basically a sympathetic link. So if you just concentrate on the picture, generally speaking, you can get effects that are not easily dismissed as merely psychological. Right. So even with COVID, even with the statements, if you could find some people who are interested on Zoom, if you're not in Toronto and you don't want to come here to Queen City, you just want to hang out with people, I'll tell you, you can kind of do a lot of these energy exercises with people. Like the exercise that Stephanie was talking about with the grab bag. It's a little tougher, but you can't hold up the item, and the person can kind of get what senses out of it. So it can be adapted to even if you can't meet with people in person. But it's still sort of not as exciting as the whole act of summoning a demon. You're just sitting there with a key or something, saying, "Hey, what vibes you get out of this?"
Unless you're kind of a nerd, a magical nerd, where it's kind of then it's exciting, even over the interwebs.
I think that's even more exciting, because then it can't be some ways that it raises more interesting questions. As an engineer and magical scientist, to me, it raises even more questions about what is going on here. Why is this possible? It shouldn't be easily accessible. So what does it mean? Not so much what does it mean in a spiritual sense. What does it mean in sort of a engineering sense of reality sense of everything? Yeah.
Right.
So we got a little late, but start. But do you have anything come up that you want to plug, Stephanie?
Well, I'm working on a few things. Things have been slow this year. I've been doing this huge landscape project in my yard. So the books are coming out slowly, but I do have one with Shaylin Gray coming out called 4 Demon Queens. And that should be hopefully by the end of the summer. We're really hoping. At least by the autumn equinox. We're hoping to have that one out. So, and that covers Tezrian, Delepatori, Lilith, and Hecate, I believe, are the four demonic forces that we're working with there. And it's mostly just a grimoire with like different correspondences and different ritual work you can do with those particular demonic forces. Because, we noticed, there's a lot about Hecate, there's a lot about Lilith, but what about, a few others? So, and then I do have a couple other books in the works, but I don't know when they're going to be released yet because I have a bunch of rituals to write for some of them and to kind of experiment with still. So I'm still working on that. And it's been, like I said, slow going with everything going on.
Nobody would say that it's slow going compared to my book writing process or speed. No one could say that about it.
Yeah, it's been a while. It has been a while. It's been since when we did the project Spirit Keeping and Spirit Vessels. That was like how many years ago? 2016, 2017, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, articles are easier for me to write than a whole book, but yeah.
Right. Well, it's easier like when you have two people because like you're each doing like half the work. So you don't have to do as much work for like a whole book.
Well, and then you could have people keep you accountable or beat you up or otherwise say, where's your shit? Where's your shit? I'll beat you up, man.
Right. You need a deadline.
Zach, well, sometimes. Working the two jobs, I figured out was not too beneficial to writing. I just don't have enough mental energy after teaching data science twice in a day. I'm just kind of like,
I get that. I have a hard time coming home and writing after spending a day doing like payroll and HR stuff. So I get that. Yeah,
it's right because it's so much high level symbol work or mental energy that it's just hard.
Well, I think it's all the math too. You do. I mean, well, I don't know if you deal with a lot of math in your stuff. I deal with a lot of math in my like accounting kind of stuff. I help out at my parents' business. So a couple times a week. But even then, on those days when I get home, I am completely and mentally wiped.
Yeah, it's the math. It's the programming is equally as attention to detail as math. So
yeah.
It's all that. So do you have any other new classes coming up or courses that you're going to start up? Or?
Right now I am focusing on my Patreon where I'm teaching a Goetia immersion class where it's 1 week per demon. We are already, I think, 27 demons in. We still have, a lot more to go. We're not even at the halfway mark yet. But I think this week we're on Astaroth. And people can like join in on the Patreon at any time and just tack on demons at the end. Because when I'm done with the course, like the entire thing is going to be put into a PDF and people who are on my Patreon will get that PDF. But I'm also planning on putting that into book form. So people who couldn't attend the Patreon class can also like buy a copy of it for their own use at home. Or if they like, fell off the bandwagon halfway through, because it is hard to go consecutively for 72 weeks. Plus we're doing the four kings at the end. So you got 76, if you add them in. So it's a 76-week class. And of course life happens and all of that happens and people fall behind. So, I wanted to make sure that they had something like afterward to totally do it. But people, if that's something people are interested in, they're welcome to check out my Patreon. And there's links to it all over my website. I can get you guys the links later or put it in the comments later.
We will put it in the YouTube descriptions, and
That we will.
Finally, when we get the podcast, now that we've been inspired for our new opening, and everyone agrees on what our opening will be, the podcast will be coming back soon. Now that I have a creative idea for it.
It's an awesome idea. So,
right, our old idea of having the red pill kind of went the way a little bit bad since we use that metaphor. So does like all these people who are basically QAnon use the same exact metaphor for everything, which, okay, I guess I would think that's the opposite of the whole metaphor expressed in the Matrix, or the intention of the Wachowski brothers and or sisters, or combination of thereof. Sorry, but still, it was pretty much become a right-wing meme, so we have to change our whole opening of our podcast, which I was not feeling creative about, but we have one now. I haven't sketched out what it'll be. That when you hear it, and you hear it on the actual podcast, I guarantee you, I'll tell you what it is off when we stop recording, and you'll laugh. Stephanie, you'll be the first one to know besides Zach that what it's going to include, and you'll laugh. It's funny, but we're not going to say it out loud because we want to keep it a mystery.
Well, I won't say anything.
Right, you got to listen to the podcast to hear the opening, the new opening that's being worked on. So soon enough. But Zach, we have a whole bunch of things coming up. What is the spiel, Zach?
The spiel is we have our Crown Chakra workshop next Saturday, which is next Sunday, which is July 31st on things. And then from there, for the sponsors, we are going to be working through the Western elements and then going to the tarot with enchantment and divinations. So that's the upcoming sponsor workshops. We also, every Sunday, are making things. So if you are a sponsor, you can chill, look, and ask questions about what we're doing with the magic. Specifically, that's more of a co-op for sponsors. We're also going to be in September.
That's not a workshop.
Yeah, it's not a workshop. It's a co-op.
We happen to be making stuff for the store. Actually
things happen.
Things happen. Yeah, it's not so structured. You won't be making stuff with the store unless you want to volunteer to be carrying stuff or doing stuff like old style temple work, but.
So there's that, and then we're going to be in Toronto Pagan Pride, and we're going to be in Hamilton Pagan Pride. So if you're in Ontario, come see us.
I think we're going to be vending in the Hammertown.
Yeah, we are. Hammertown vending.
So we're going to offer divinations there in Hamilton. We don't know if we're going to vend yet in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
We have to kind of talk with people. And we offer a full suite of divinations at the store. We have multiple diviners who are associated with the store. Besides me and Zach, there are others. You'll start seeing them. Like one person was Kaliva, who works with the Medici dead, is going to maybe start divining here. And we have other people who are coming down as diviners for the store. So if you're in Toronto, or not in Toronto, but you want a divination through the store, we've got some real high-quality diviners here. And they all have the same mentality, so it's not just a divination. That's not the way our store or everyone we associate works with. It's sort of a divination and life coaching at the same time to try to get you through where you need to be, and not just kind of answer questions like, will I win the lottery tomorrow? It's more like more serious kind of spiritual divinations than that, which we offer. Last thing is that, yes, we keep saying that both the Sangha is coming back, and it is. Early in August, we're going to announce we're going to do the first ritual. We're just getting supplies. To be honest, me and Zach, I'm not sure how to do a Monkey King possession ritual. I know how to do a Monkey King possession ritual.
He knows how to do it. There's a difference.
I don't know how to make it look showy, so I have to study a little. Or I don't know how to make it look theatrical, so that's a little different than just me and Zach doing a Monkey King possession ritual.
Yeah, that's a little different than me like, yo, Monkey King, we gotta make it showy.
Hop on in. Here I am. Boom. Right. Done. That sort of goes with what we're talking about today, but it is happening for the people watching who have repeatedly asked us, as Zach mentioned, as you have repeatedly, our sponsors have repeatedly asked for the tarot. From our perspective, we will do that. And it'll be multiple weeks of and the elements, the Western elements, are basically your prerequisites for that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a sponsor, there's a workshop every 2 weeks. Not only is the workshop there every 2 weeks, we have 50 workshops from the last since we've started up again. All kinds of topics, like you, pretty much anything you could think of. You probably could learn some real magic from the workshops about how to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
So become a sponsor. It helps us keep the lights on for the show.
It does.
That's how it is. With that, next week we're going into our Buddhism trip.
Yes, fun time. So we're going to be working with Pierce Ogaro for that one, and that will be on his new book, Buddhish.
There you go. Of course, those of us at Queen City Curio, always stay healthy, stay well, and we'll see you next week. Everyone have a great night. Or day, if you're across the world.
Cool. So we're off air?
Excellent.
Yeah, that our software, when it works, handles all this shit for us.
That's nice.
Okay, so at least
Very
on my
nice.
end, it's saying end stream, but I thought we ended stream.
I did just end the stream. Let me try it again.